that we could send to youth everywhere, I think it would be that we all have mental health, that it's something that we all need to take care of, that it's very simple to make a change. You know, there's something that we go back to year in, year out, and it's this this thing of, you know, you can create awareness, you can be a leader in mental health. You don't have to stand up and make speeches, or even, you know, it can be something very, very small, whether it's looking for, you know, mental health in yourself and others.
And I would just say it's so simple. I think the message would just be to talk. If you start by talking, then you're getting somewhere, and if all of us are talking about it, then we're going to go really far. So if all young people would just talk about it with their peers, with their parents, with the people in their lives, then I think that's a really good first step.
And I think you said it eloquently before, is that you're not alone. As simple as that you're not alone, because so many kids come in and feel like this is just happening to me. I'm the only person that's ever been through this. No one understands how I feel. And to realize that there are many people who have been through similar situations, that simple fact that you have a community around you, no matter what community it is, that will support you and help you through it.
So I think I would add to that as well, and just looking around the room at the number of people that are here today who see this as an important issue. And so if you do talk to somebody and you don't get the support that you need, or it was an uncomfortable conversation, please keep trying, because there are lots of us here and in the community who really do care and want to support you.
And I don't think mine will be a surprise, is identify that safe person that you feel that you can confide in and talk to and share your problem, and keep trying till you find that person.
So I think for me, I often talk to adolescents that come to the clinic that don't be afraid to be yourself, because they have in adolescence, they have a tunnel vision as normal to not be able to project yourself in the future and always comparing yourself against others and falling short. You know, if you can look outside that, you're going to find your niche, and you're going to find the group of friends that are going to care about you in later years. School is not the end all or be all of your existence. You know, their life exists after that. So I think, again, withdrawing from, the relationships have been pointed out as the main thing that is very important. So withdrawing from those important relationships would be the best marker that I would kind of focus on as a big thing where things have really gone wrong, and it's turned now from something less serious to more serious.
So for me, I would say I would certainly agree with Dr. Khan as well, just that using that gut intuition that there's something different. There's something not the same about that person. And as a parent, as a teacher, as a friend, you know that person and you know that something's changed, so have that conversation with them.
I always tell parents when they come into the clinic that, first and foremost, you know your child best, right? You know when something is off. You know when something is different. Echoing what my colleagues have said on the panel, I think the other piece is, especially for the youth that we see who are contemplating suicide or who have attempted suicide, is that you need to be aware of some of the warning signs there. If you see that child giving things away, if you see that child changing routines, if you see suddenly their problems have disappeared and they have the solution and everything's going to be just fine. If you see warning signs like that, that's the time when you say, you know what, we need to go down to the hospital, come to our clinic, or somewhere and get that help, because that's, at that point, that child is really making a decision that they see no other way out. So I think that's another important sign as well.
And I think the only thing that we could possibly add, I mean, there's obviously individuals here far more qualified to talk about this than we are, but I think I would just add that there are some tremendous resources available to youth and some tremendous individuals in our community as well. So I would just encourage, as we have been, to reach out and learn about it.
I'll talk to my own experience about that, is that many times you can't talk about it. You're afraid of rejection. You're afraid of judgment. You're afraid of shame. You're afraid of what people might say. And to be able to release something that might be so private, to share it with someone, and then what happens if the school finds out? What happens if my friends find out? So it's a very, sometimes they may not see any other way out other than saying, I have to end it. So that's why it's important to have that conversation. Many times, a lot of the kids that we see in our clinic, sometimes they say, nobody asked me how I was feeling. Nobody asked me why I wanted to do this. And sometimes that's all they want, is they want that conversation.
This is a brain disorder, so like Dr. Miller was saying, with the study, they're going to look at all the biological markers. Things do change in the brain that are not maybe apparent on a imaging study maybe, but you can see change. There are changes in the serotonin levels, and so that also affects when a person is having symptoms. They have an illness that is treatable. And that's why probably all these thoughts are changed, negative thoughts come about, and the person feels they can't really come out of that. So it's a mixture of all the different things, the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, and the biological changes that are happening in the body and the brain. So those are the reasons why the person might not be able to get out of the way they're feeling.
So what I would add to that too is that it's that feeling of hopelessness and the feeling that there isn't another option. And so when we sit down with students, with youth, and we hear what's been going on and what they've been dealing with, and we start thinking, well, I can think of some solutions to that, or I can help you with that, but that person in that moment isn't able to see those solutions, isn't able to see that there's another way of feeling, there's another way of doing things.
So I think one of the things that became apparent to me was that there was, for a long time, I think, a gap in that sense that we were tailoring a lot of things to the so-called 1 in 5 individuals who might be suffering with a mental illness, or tailored to looking after your mental health, and perhaps not to the people who help the people around them. And it was a question that came up this year as well when we were discussing this with our peers. Quite a lot is how you help individuals, if you've had a friend reach out to you, how you can best be in a place to do that. And I think the good thing from our perspective is that institutions, universities, schools, colleges, and indeed lots of the organizations out there do seem now to be recognizing that and producing some fantastic resources that are available to help you as an individual, whether you're a parent or, as you said, a teacher, or just a friend of an individual who might be suffering.
For our teachers, for education, this is something that we are focusing on. We're providing learning opportunities for all of our staff, and that doesn't matter whether it's a teacher, a principal, an educational assistant, the person who works in the cafeteria, the attendants, secretaries. All of those folks need to have that basic mental health awareness, because we know that the connection students have isn't always with the counselor or the psychologist. It's with those folks in the buildings, and so they need to know how to have that conversation. I think for parents as well, if you're having those concerns, we've mentioned a couple of organizations, certainly talking with people at school about, have you noticed anything going on with my child? What are your thoughts? What are the kinds of things we should be looking at? Pathways, of course, for Children and Youth is another wonderful organization that can provide you with some guidance as well.
And there's also a great mental health guide on the Hinks website. So it's the Hinks Center, and they have sort of like an encyclopedia to mental health, and it gives you sort of good checklists and red light, yellow lights, and green lights for kids.
Something that's interesting with the parents that come into the clinic, especially with their youth who's contemplated suicide or who might be self-harming through cutting, a lot of times they tell me, well, when I was a kid, I just got over it. You know what? They just need to learn how to get over it. It's not that big of a deal. And so many times what I try to explain to parents is, you are a unique individual, and so is your partner, and now you've created this child who is their own unique individual. And they can't process these things the same way that you did as a child. The world was very different for many of us 20, 30 years ago than it is for kids today. And so to have that expectation that they should just be able to deal with it or get over it like I did isn't the right terminology anymore. It's about educating parents and helping them understand that kids have their own struggles they have to deal with, and they're looking for the tools to be able to overcome that. And as parents, as Dr. Craig was mentioning with relationships, you're one of the best tools to help your child by being there and by understanding and by doing the work with them, whether it's through psychotherapy or whether it's through counseling. That's going to be the most effective thing, I think.
So one of the ways in the assessment, when there is a problem that the parent is not able to recognize or break down the stigma that, or just judging their own child, often when you ask that parent, how was your childhood growing up, more often than not, the difficulties that were faced by the parent growing up, talking about that in front of their adolescent in the assessment really changes the dynamic, and there's a softening that comes about often because a conversation never happened in the home, and there's a turning point often in sessions which happens. So I think again, conversations, but in our lives we're so busy, often we don't sit down and talk in a way that would be conducive to bring up some of those things and share our own childhood and our struggles growing up with our children. And so they could see that the way we're functioning now, it came from a place of adversity at times.
And I think I would just add that one of the things that we have as parents is that we're role models and coaches. And it's okay for us not to know answers, that often things like stigma come out of a place of fear because we don't know how to handle it or what to do about it. And I think that these opportunities to have the conversations are about learning together and creating an openness and a space. And in sharing in that journey about learning about what's going on for your child, and their experiences of the world and learning about the resources, then you're also role modeling that it's okay to open up and talk about it. But I think the thing that we have to do as parents is have self-awareness and be aware of what makes it difficult for us to talk about it, what makes it difficult for us to accept it. And once we understand that, then we can start to open the doors and create that climate to have the conversation.
Just to add to that, I think something that we always try to look at is this idea that we're 20 right now, and we are the next generation of parents. So hopefully if we can sort of create this movement in the young people, they will be that next generation of parents, and hopefully they will be more comfortable having those conversations, and it'll just be something inherent in the sort of family unit. So that's something neat to look at going forward.
All right, a lot of mental health statistics presented tonight versus living with someone who's experiencing an episode that may be, it looks like from a unique individual, and living with this day to day can be very different things. Do you have any suggestions on a family coping when they have to face this issue 24/7?
That comes up a lot when we work with our clients, especially with kids who have severe behavioral issues or severe emotional issues. And I think first and foremost, it's about finding the resources in your community. Even caregivers, I always tell parents that, if you don't take care of yourself, how do you expect to take care of your child? If you don't access the resources that maybe give you respite for a weekend or provide you with support in the home. Pathways is excellent with that here in our community. They'll have therapists who actually go into the home and work with the parents and the children to help with communication styles, to help with setting up a behavioral plan. So a lot of times it's about learning to access those resources and being able to put them in action to help, because you do need a break. It can be exhausting. We have parents who have come in and said, I'm at my wit's end. I don't know what else to do. I don't know how to handle this. I feel like I'm failing my child. And it's about coming together as a community to support that parent and to support that family to help them be able to have those tools in their home to be successful and to not burn out. It's easy for us sometimes at 5 o'clock we can check out and go home, but these parents have to deal with it 24/7. And I think that's something that we have to remind ourselves in our work every day.
So one other thing I would say, that there's a point where the disorder ends or is there, but it changes into behavior, and that's because out of fear, parents living with an adolescent who may be wanting to cut superficially or having thoughts of suicide, they start to try to kind of walking on eggshells type of feeling in the home, that they're scared to set limits with their child. Which really creates a big issue in families. And so again, I mean, recognizing that if you are a parent who is, it feels like you've given up, the child becomes the parent, and you're giving up all kind of this hierarchical role, then that's a sign that what Nicholas was saying, that we need, that family needs to get help.
And I guess I would just add that it's really important to have that awareness that it is challenging day to day, and you have to make sure that you're supported in your role. And it's another way that you need to find your peer group and your counseling, if you need it, to be able to be effective. The idea about bringing an oxygen mask and putting it on yourself first isn't just for airplanes. It's also for dealing with mental health, that you have to be healthy and well enough to be able to support your child. So that's a really important issue.